Wednesday, January 15th is Armed Forces Remembrance Day in Nigeria, in tribute to those who committed their lives to serve the nation from the front lines of military operations. Many of them have had to fight through very challenging situations, either because of the superior firearms of the enemy or the inadequacy of the government to provide them with needed support in military hardware. Our next guest on Newsday is Brigadier General retired Sani Usman, a former spokesman of the Nigerian Army. And he now joins us to discuss how poor funding could impact military operations and the need to redress the situation in order to enhance the fight against banditry and insurgency. Good day, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
All right, so let's have your thoughts on budgetary allocations towards defense over time in Nigeria. How would you assess it? What are the challenges here?
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me on the program. People may notice increment over time in terms of defense spending in this country. However, when you put it side by side with the mutating security challenges, you can understand actually there is so much to be done in terms of defense spending or allocations, as it may be in this country, simply because look at insurgency, banditry, kidnapping, militancy, and so many other security challenges. And when you look at also the economic situation, take for instance something that you can procure at the cost of maybe 100 million naira about 2-3 years ago, it is no longer that. Maybe you need to quadruple that amount of money. And more so, you look at the fact that we hardly produce anything that we need in this country in terms of military hardware. So you have to go elsewhere. So to a large extent, much need to be done in terms of defense spending. However, I think the most important thing, it is not just that. We need to also improve in our local manufacturing, in terms of local defense industrial complex. A lot has been done over time, and countries that we have taken up together, they are far ahead of us, and that makes it very, very difficult in terms of dealing with, security challenges which require, the use of military war, hardware, as it were. So invariably, a lot of people will argue that so much they will count the number of trillions over time, but when you look at it, based on the security challenges and the need of the armed forces, you realize that it is grossly inadequate. And we have to give kudos to the government and, of course, the National Assembly. I was made to understand that they are so determined to increase that and to make sure that the military gets what it requires, even though you might not have everything that you need, because the military is ever ready and willing to, to perform its duties accordingly. But they are hamstrung because of this issue of equipment and other supporting elements from the society.
All right, thank you for that outline. Now, I'm just wondering, we've seen reports lately about, for instance, the loss of our troops in Damboa, and also in cases where civilian targets were mistakenly hit, assuming that they were bandits. I'm wondering if inadequate funding has impacted on the intelligence gathering capabilities of the military, based on your assessment.
Yeah, to a large extent it does. Why? Because now so much as you rely on human intelligence, you also rely on technology, so that it will give you more precise and accurate information and intelligence that will assist you in striking without having collateral damage. And more so, the adversaries are also becoming more sophisticated, even though we have had instances, of course, where they acquire weapons that are even that include anti-aircraft guns and the use of drone. I think what is required is to be ahead of them in terms of this equipment. So if they have information related, I mean, gathering equipment, ours should be the one that should be armed and will strike, you know, armed drones and what have you. So to a large extent, it does. So like I was saying at the beginning, that the military require all the support it could get in terms of, you know, equipment, logistics, and information, and the cooperation from the people. So to a large extent, it does. And even the intelligence that you are talking about, acquiring, you know, sophisticated equipment, you know, cost money. Then, of course, even the human intelligence, because the adversaries themselves, they take and do advantage of, you know, loopholes in the system to entice people. Because one of the staying powers of, you know, bandits and kidnappers to a large extent, apart from the knowledge of the ground, is the use of informants. And these informants, they are being enticed with little amount of money. And so if you don't allocate much resources towards information and intelligence gathering, it will affect your, you know, performance. And so with it, when you have the information that is timely and accurate, you also need the equipment so that you can react accordingly. So to a large extent, it does.
Very good, General Usman. Now, when soldiers complain of not having enough resources to fulfill their constitutional role as expected of them, who is to blame? And has there been greater scrutiny of the military hierarchy itself when it comes to expenditure over time?
Well, to me, it is not issue of blame. But if you are talking about blame, I think it is a collective responsibility. Because every segment of the Nigerian society has a role to play in dealing with security challenges or even issues of national development. Take, for instance, me and you. In terms of leadership recruitment system, have you elected credible leaders that will ensure what you actually wanted is the thing that is being done? That is one. Secondly, under the oversight functions of the society, then of course, those, the end users, the military, the security forces, are they applying those things in the right direction? And most importantly, again, the supporting element that I said, because they are not magicians, the society ought to support them. So when you are talking about all this issue, if we are going to blame, it is a collective responsibility. But I think the issue here is that there is any time you have any complete sensitivity program or even policy, the issue of monitoring and evaluation and feedback mechanism or oversight function is equally very important. So it's a kind of complex issue or interplay of so many things. But the most important thing is to ensure that whatever is allocated is used for that purpose and, of course, is properly accounted for. And people have been strategically, you know, allocated duties and responsibility to that extent. And I think we need to follow through. Any resources that is allocated to anybody, anywhere, for a particular purpose, that we make sure that it is done for that purpose. To a large extent, it will help. But most importantly is the fact that do you have enough? And again, addressing the root causes of some of these security challenges, you know, in terms, because most of the security challenges were local issues that were allowed to, you know, escalate to the extent that they are doing. So military solution is not the best, so to speak. So the military solution has to go pari passu with other, you know, efforts so that we can mitigate the security challenges. Otherwise, we'll be spending, and yet we might not be seeing the result. And more so, you know, the people that sell the military hardware, they always be happy that they have a market.
Absolutely. Thank you for touching on the importance of the resources going to where they're supposed to. But let's talk about the human resources for a moment. How has poor funding affected troop morale and combat readiness?
You see, the best thing that you give to a soldier is training, but you don't train just like that, because they said a soldier march on his stomach. And of course, you have behind the, you know, the people that are manning the gun, you have to take care of them. So equipment And, funding are very, very important in terms of the performance of the military. Take, for instance, they require certain things. And in fact, just yesterday, we were discussing some issue as regards to what are the daily maintenance allowances of our troops, right from the commander down to the last man on the trench. When you compare it to even those in the prison, the soldier is poor up, because I was made to understand initially it was just merely 1,000 naira per day. I think now is it 2,000 naira per day? Let's be realistic. Can 2,000 naira sustain an individual in this prevailing circumstances? Somebody who is willing to die for me and you so that we will live in peace. So these are the issues. This is just one. Then we look at the climatic condition. The climatic condition in the northwestern part of the country is different from that of the northeastern part. So you think of uniform, you think of boots, you think of all those cultural men that could assist. I'm not even talking about hardware in terms of the guns, the arms, the ammunition, and the supporting elements. The Air Force, what are the resources available to them in terms of the bombs and so on. And these are very, very expensive things. So where you do not have them, and I remember way back when I was in the theater, we have had instances, soldiers may not, will refuse to venture into certain places simply because the accompanying supporting elements, take for instance an MRAP or an APC, is not available. So automatically you are putting their lives at risk. So these are the things. So it's to a large extent it affects morale of the troops, whether even they are involved in fighting or not. And of course, an offense against the morale to the military actually is a punishable offense. It's a capital offense. So you can understand the implication of, lack of equipment to the morale of the troops.
Indeed, those are enlightening revelations you've just made there. Brigadier General Usman Sani, retired, would like to thank you very much for your thoughts. He's the former Nigerian Army spokesperson. Would like to thank you for being on Newsday.